Hello, this is Dana Andrews, and this is the 23rd segment of the Master the Bible Today series, a snapshot of the book of Philemon. Philemon consists of only one chapter and is a private personal letter written by the Apostle Paul to Philemon, who was a wealthy member of the Colossian church, to convince him to forgive his runaway slave, Onesimus, and to accept him back as a brother in the faith. While this letter was written to Philemon, it has significance for all believers in Christ. Roman, Greek, and Jewish cultures, just like today, were littered with barriers, as society assigned people to classes and expected them to stay in their place. Men and women, slave and free, rich and poor, Jews and Gentiles, Greeks and barbarians, pious and pagan. But with the message of Christ, the walls came down, and Paul would declare, quote, "Here there is no Greek or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free, but Christ is all and is in all," unquote. Colossians chapter 3, verse 11. I want to take a moment here to tell you a little bit about Paul. No person apart from Jesus himself shaped the history of Christianity like the Apostle Paul. He wrote no less than 12 books in the New Testament. Even before he was a believer, his actions were significant. Paul was deeply religious with a lot of religious training, and he sincerely believed that this Christian movement started by Jesus was dangerous to Judaism. He hated it and persecuted Christians without mercy. His frenzied persecution of Christians following Stephen's death caused them to flee and, ironically, got the church started in obeying Christ's final command to take the gospel worldwide. Paul got permission to travel to Damascus to capture Christians, arrest them, and bring them back to Jerusalem. But God stopped him in his hurried tracks on the Damascus road, where he met Jesus in a spectacular way, and his life was never again the same. Paul never lost his fierce intensity, but from then on it was channeled for the gospel. Now back to the book of Philemon. Onesimus, the slave, had stolen from his master and run away. He ran to Rome, where he met Paul, and there he responded to the good news and came to faith in Christ. Verse 10. So Paul wrote to Philemon and reintroduces Onesimus to him, explaining that he is sending him back not as a slave, but as a brother, verses 11, 12, and 16. Tactfully, he asked Philemon to accept and forgive Onesimus. Paul asks that the barriers of the past and the new ones erected by Onesimus' desertion and theft should divide them no longer, because they are now one in Christ. This small book is a masterpiece of grace and tact, and a powerful demonstration of the power of Christ and of true Christian fellowship in action. We need to ask ourselves, what barriers are in our home, our neighborhood, our church? What separates you from fellow believers? Race, status, wealth, education, personality? In Christ, we are one family. No walls of racial, economic, or political differences should separate us. As with Philemon, God calls us to seek unity, breaking down those walls and embracing our brothers and sisters in Christ. As Paul interceded for a slave, So Christ intercedes for us, slaves to sin. As Onesimus was reconciled to Philemon, so we are reconciled to God through Christ. As Paul offered to pay the debts of a slave in verse 18, so Christ paid our debt of sin. Like Onesimus, we must return to God our Master and serve Him. Thank you.